Picture this. You've just sacrificed 7 years of your life, worked 2 jobs until exhaustion, and spent every penny you had to put your younger sister through medical school. The day she graduates with her shiny new MD, you're bursting with pride, thinking about how your parents would have been so happy to see their dream live on through her. Then, 2 weeks later, a sheriff's deputy knocks on your door and hands you court documents. Your sister, the same person whose education you funded, is suing you, claiming you stole her inheritance. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you'd give them everything, only to have them turn around and destroy you? Have you ever made sacrifices for family that left you broke and exhausted, believing it was all worth it? What would you do if the person you loved most betrayed you in the most devastating way possible? This is exactly what happened to me. My name is Autumn Sinclair, and this is the story of how my own sister took everything I gave her and then tried to take even more. But here's the thing about family betrayal: sometimes it pushes you to fight back harder than you ever thought possible. Before we get into this wild story, if you're new here, welcome to Revenge Flex, where we explore real stories of people who refuse to let others walk all over them. Hit that like button if you're ready for some serious justice, and don't forget to subscribe because trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. Also, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. So let me take you back to where this all began. 7 years ago, I made a promise that would cost me everything. I thought I was being a good sister. I thought family meant something. I was about to learn that sometimes the people closest to you are capable of the cruelest betrayal. But here's what my sister didn't count on. I'm not the type of person who goes down without a fight. And when someone tries to destroy you after you've given them everything, well, let's just say the legal system has some very interesting ways of delivering justice. The question isn't whether I got my revenge, it's whether she ever saw it coming. It was a Tuesday night in October when everything changed forever. I was 25, working as a junior marketing coordinator, and finally feeling like my life was getting on track. Isabella was 19, in her second year of pre-med, absolutely brilliant and determined to follow in our father's footsteps. He was a family physician who had dedicated his life to helping people in our small community, and Isabella worshipped him. That Tuesday night, our parents were driving home from their anniversary dinner when a drunk driver ran a red light and slammed into their car. They were killed instantly. In one horrific moment, Isabella and I went from being daughters to orphans. The grief was suffocating. I remember sitting in the funeral home, making arrangements I never thought I'd have to make, while Isabella sat in complete shock. She barely spoke for days. Our extended family lived across the country, and suddenly it was just us, two sisters trying to navigate a world that had just crumbled beneath our feet. A week after the funeral, we met with our parents' lawyer for the reading of the will. They'd left us everything: their modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs, completely paid off, and about $85,000 from savings and life insurance policies. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to give us a foundation to rebuild our lives. That night, we sat in our childhood kitchen, the same kitchen where Mom used to make pancakes every Sunday morning, where Dad would review Isabella's science projects. Everything felt empty and wrong without them there. Isabella broke down crying, her whole body shaking with sobs. "I can't do this anymore, Autumn," she whispered through her tears. "Medical school is so expensive. Dad was going to help me with tuition and everything. I should just quit and get a job. Maybe become a nurse or something." I reached across that old wooden table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of family dinners, and grabbed her hands. They were ice cold and trembling. "No," I said firmly, looking straight into her eyes. "You are not giving up on your dream. Dad would be devastated if you quit because of money. You're going to become the doctor he always knew you could be." "But how?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Medical school costs a fortune, and then there's living expenses, books, exam fees." "I can't ask you to, you're not asking," I interrupted. "I'm offering. We're family, Isabella. We're all each other has now. I'll figure out a way to make this work." That's when we made our agreement. I would use our inheritance to support her through medical school. The house would stay in both our names, exactly as our parents intended. Once she graduated and started earning a doctor's salary, she would help me get back on my feet financially. Maybe I could finally start that marketing consultancy I'd always dreamed about, or buy my own place. We'd take care of each other, just like Mom and Dad would have wanted. Isabella threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. "I promise, Autumn. Once I'm making real money, I'm going to take care of you the way you're taking care of me now. You're the best sister anyone could ask for." I'll never forget this. I believed her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my baby sister, my only family left in the world. We just lost everything, and all we had was each other. The idea that she would ever betray that bond never even crossed my mind. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was. But in that moment, holding my grieving sister in our parents' kitchen, making promises by lamplight, I thought I was doing something beautiful. I thought I was honoring our parents' memory and keeping our family together. I had no idea I was signing my own destruction. Medical school is expensive beyond anything I had imagined. Between tuition, fees, textbooks, housing near the campus, and basic living expenses, Isabella needed about $45,000 every single year. The inheritance money lasted through her first 2 years, and then it was gone. Completely depleted. That's when the real sacrifice began. I was making decent money as a marketing coordinator, but nowhere near enough to cover both my own expenses and Isabella's massive educational costs. So I did what I had to do. I got a second job waitressing at an upscale restaurant downtown. Every Friday and Saturday night, while my friends were out enjoying their 20s, going to bars and dating and living normal lives, I was serving tables with a smile plastered on my face, hoping for good tips. The math was brutal. After taxes, my day job brought in about $3,200 a month. The restaurant added another $1,800 on good months. Isabella's expenses ate up nearly every penny. I moved out of my apartment and back into our parents' house to save on rent. I sold my reliable car and bought a 15-year-old Honda Civic that broke down at least once a month. I stopped going out with friends because I literally couldn't afford a $12 cocktail or a $30 dinner. My social life disappeared. Dating became impossible. How do you explain to someone that you can't go out because you're financially supporting your sister's medical education? Most guys my age weren't exactly lining up to date someone who worked 7 days a week and had zero disposable income. But Isabella was thriving. She threw herself into her studies with incredible determination. Her grades were outstanding, Dean's List every semester. She'd call me late at night when she was stressed about upcoming exams, and I'd talk her through it. "You're brilliant, Bella," I'd tell her, using the nickname I'd called her since we were kids. "You're going to be an amazing doctor. Dad would be so proud." "I know this is so hard on you," she'd say, her voice soft with gratitude. "I see how exhausted you are, how much you're giving up for me. Once I graduate and get through residency, everything changes. I'm going to take care of you the way you're taking care of me. We're going to be okay, Autumn. I promise." I documented everything meticulously. Every tuition payment, every check I wrote for her rent, every grocery bill I covered when she ran out of money. I wasn't trying to keep score or hold it over her head. I just wanted to stay organized, to make sure I understood exactly what our agreement entailed. I kept receipts, bank statements, email confirmations. Looking back, it's probably the smartest thing I ever did. Year 3 was when the exhaustion really hit me. Working 60-hour weeks was taking a toll on my body and my mental health. I was constantly tired, constantly stressed about money. My manager at the restaurant started commenting on how I looked worn down. I developed chronic back pain from being on my feet so many hours. I stopped taking care of myself, no money for the dentist, no money for new clothes, definitely no money for any kind of vacation or break. Meanwhile, Isabella was excelling in her clinical rotations. She'd text me updates about her experiences in the hospital, how much she loved working with patients, how excited she was about her future specialty. Emergency medicine, she told me during one of our phone calls. "I want to save lives, just like Dad did." By year 4, I had depleted my entire savings account. The $12,000 I'd managed to save before our parents died was gone. I was living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes having to choose between groceries for myself or covering Isabella's textbook costs. She always came first. The restaurant work was getting harder too. Weekend shifts meant dealing with drunk customers, staying on my feet until 2 a.m., then dragging myself to my office job on Monday morning. My coworkers started asking if I was okay. I looked perpetually exhausted, and I'd lost weight because I was skipping meals to save money. Isabella's 5th year brought additional expenses I hadn't anticipated. Medical board exam fees, application costs for residency programs, interview travel expenses. Each unexpected cost felt like another punch to my already strained finances. But every time I felt like I might break, she'd remind me how close we were to the finish line. "Just 2 more years, Autumn," she'd say. "2 more years and then I'll be Dr. Isabella Sinclair." And then it's your turn. I'm going to help you start that business you've always wanted. We're almost there. By the time Isabella graduated, I had paid out approximately $185,000 of my own earnings on top of the original inheritance. 7 years of my life, 7 years of working myself into the ground, 7 years of sacrificing every personal goal and dream I had. But watching her walk across that stage in her white coat, seeing the pride in her eyes, I thought it had all been worth it. I thought I had kept my promise to our parents. I thought I had saved my sister's future. I had no idea she was already planning to destroy mine. May 15th. I'll never forget that date as long as I live. It was exactly 2 weeks after Isabella's graduation ceremony, where I had sat in the audience crying tears of pure joy as she received her medical degree. 2 weeks after she hugged me and whispered "thank you" in my ear as photographers snapped pictures of our proud moment together. I was getting the mail that afternoon when I saw the thick envelope with the county courthouse logo in the corner. My name was typed across the front in official black letters. For a split second, I thought maybe it was jury duty or some routine legal notice. I had no reason to expect what was actually inside. Standing right there in the driveway, I tore open the envelope and pulled out a stack of legal documents. The words at the top made my blood run cold: complaint for partition and accounting, and underneath, Isabella Sinclair versus Autumn Sinclair. My hands started shaking as I read through the legal language. Isabella was suing me for misappropriation of inherited assets and unjust enrichment. According to her lawsuit, I had been living in our parents' house rent-free for 7 years while she struggled to pay for her education. She was demanding that I either buy out her half of the house at current market value, approximately $200,000, or that we sell the house immediately and split the proceeds 50-50. There was absolutely no mention of the $185,000 I had spent on her medical education. No acknowledgement of our agreement. No recognition of the 7 years I had worked myself to exhaustion, sacrificed my social life, my health, my own dreams. According to these documents, I was nothing more than a freeloader who had taken advantage of my grieving sister. My knees actually buckled. I had to sit down on the front steps of the house, our parents' house, just to catch my breath. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I couldn't process it. This was my sister. The person I had given everything for. The person who had cried in my arms and promised to take care of me once she was successful. I called her immediately, my fingers fumbling with my phone. She answered on the third ring, her voice calm and professional. "Hello, Autumn." "Isabella, what the hell is this lawsuit?" "I'm holding court documents with your name on them." "Oh, you got those. Good." Her tone was matter-of-fact, like we were discussing the weather. I was wondering when they'd be served. "Are you out of your mind? You're suing me? After everything I've done for you." "It's not personal, Autumn. It's business. I consulted with a lawyer, and she explained that you've been living in a house that's half mine without paying me rent. That's not fair. I need to establish my financial independence, and I need my equity from the house to buy a place near the hospital for my residency." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I paid for your entire medical school education. $185,000 of my own money. We had an agreement." Her laugh was cold, clinical. "We had a conversation, Autumn. A conversation between two grieving people who weren't thinking clearly. There's nothing in writing. You chose to help me through school. That was your decision. It doesn't entitle you to live in my property for free." "Your property? It's our parents' house. They left it to both of us." "Exactly. Both of us. Which means you owe me rent for the past 7 years, or you need to buy me out. My lawyer says I have a very strong case. You can either pay me what you owe, or we can sell the house and split the money. Your choice." The person speaking to me wasn't my sister anymore. This was someone I didn't recognize, cold, calculating, completely devoid of any gratitude or family loyalty. "Isabella, how can you do this to me? I gave up everything for you. Everything. Nobody asked you to do that. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. You'll be hearing from my lawyer about the next steps. I suggest you get your own attorney." The line went dead. My baby sister, the person I had loved and protected and sacrificed for, had just hung up on me. I sat there on those front steps for over an hour, reading through the legal documents again and again, trying to make sense of what was happening. The language was brutal and impersonal. According to Isabella's version of events, she was the victim of my manipulation and greed. I was painted as someone who had taken advantage of a vulnerable young woman's grief to secure free housing. The worst part was the complete erasure of our relationship, our history, our agreement. 7 years of sacrifice reduced to nothing. 7 years of love and support dismissed as if they had never happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the late-night phone calls when she was stressed, all the times I'd reassured her and encouraged her. I thought about the text messages she'd sent me throughout medical school. "You're the best sister in the world. I couldn't do this without you. I'm going to make this up to you, I promise." Apparently, those promises meant nothing. But as I lay there in the dark, something else started to grow alongside the heartbreak and betrayal. Anger. Pure, righteous anger. Isabella thought she could use me for 7 years and then throw me away when I was no longer useful. She thought she could rewrite history and make me the villain in our story. She was about to learn that I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I wasn't going down without a fight. The morning after that devastating phone call, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Isabella wanted to play legal games? Fine. Two could play that game, and I had something she clearly forgot about: documentation of everything. My first call was to my friend Maria, who worked as a paralegal downtown. "I need a lawyer," I told her, my voice still hoarse from crying. "Family law, and someone who doesn't back down from a fight." "What happened?" Maria asked, and when I explained the situation, she was silent for a long moment. "Jesus, Autumn. That's beyond cold. But I know exactly who you need to call. Rachel Martinez. She specializes in family disputes and estate issues. She's tough as nails, and she hates people who try to manipulate the system." 3 hours later, I was sitting in Rachel's office, a small but professional space filled with law books and case files. Rachel was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. I laid out my entire story, watching her expression change from neutral interest to genuine anger as I described Isabella's lawsuit. "Let me get this straight," Rachel said, leaning forward in her chair. "You spent 7 years and $185,000 supporting her medical education based on a clear agreement that she would help you afterward. Now she's claiming you were unjustly enriched by living in your jointly owned family home." "That's exactly what she's claiming." Rachel shook her head in disgust. "Unfortunately, this happens more often than you'd think. Family members who conveniently forget about oral agreements once they're in a better financial position." "But you said you documented everything." I pulled out the banker's box I'd brought with me, filled with 7 years of meticulous record-keeping. Bank statements showing every tuition payment, canceled checks for her rent and living expenses, credit card statements for textbooks and medical supplies I'd bought her, email confirmations for online payments. Rachel's eyes lit up as she flipped through the documents. "This is incredible," she said, holding up a stack of receipts. "You have everything. Tuition payments, housing costs, even grocery receipts. Most people in your situation have nothing concrete to work with." "I've always been organized with finances," I explained. "And honestly, the amounts were so large that I wanted to keep track of exactly what I was spending." Rachel pulled out her phone and started taking photos of some of the documents. "We're not just going to defend against her lawsuit, Autumn. We're going to file a countersuit. She's claiming you were unjustly enriched? We're going to show the court that she's the one who was unjustly enriched to the tune of $185,000. Can we actually win this?" I asked, hardly daring to hope. "With documentation like this?" "Absolutely. We can argue several different legal theories. Unjust enrichment, definitely. She received substantial financial benefit that she needs to repay. We can also argue breach of oral contract and equitable estoppel, which means you relied on her promises to your financial detriment." Rachel explained that we'd need to gather additional evidence beyond the financial records. Text messages, emails, witness testimony from people who knew about our arrangement. "The key is showing this wasn't just you being generous," she said. "This was a clear agreement with expectations of reciprocity." I spent the next 2 weeks compiling everything. I went through my phone and found dozens of text messages from Isabella throughout medical school. Messages like, "I can't wait to start paying you back for everything, and once I'm making doctor money, your life is going to be so much easier." I found emails where she explicitly discussed our plan, including one from her 4th year that said, "I know these sacrifices are killing you financially, but we're almost at the finish line. Soon it'll be my turn to take care of you." The evidence was damning. Isabella hadn't just accepted my financial support, she had actively encouraged it with promises of future reciprocation. Rachel also suggested we gather witness testimony. My former coworkers could testify about my exhausting work schedule and the reasons behind it. Friends who had heard Isabella discuss our arrangement could provide statements. Even my restaurant manager, who had watched me work myself ragged for years, was willing to testify about my dedication to supporting my sister's education. The beautiful thing about your sister's approach, Rachel explained during one of our preparation meetings, is that she's essentially arguing you should have been paying rent. But we can show that instead of paying rent, you were paying for her medical education, which cost far more than any reasonable rent would have been. As we built our case, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: hope. For the first time since receiving those court documents, I believed there might be justice in this situation. Isabella thought she could rewrite history and make me the villain, but the truth was documented in black and white. Your sister made a critical mistake, Rachel told me as we reviewed our strategy. She assumed you'd just roll over and accept her version of events. She clearly didn't expect you to have this level of documentation or the backbone to fight back. She was right. Isabella had underestimated me completely. She thought the sister who had quietly sacrificed for 7 years would quietly accept being destroyed. She thought wrong. The countersuit was filed 3 weeks later. Now Isabella would have to face the consequences of her betrayal in open court. The lawsuit dragged on for 8 brutal months. 8 months of legal maneuvering, depositions, and discovery requests. 8 months of Isabella's lawyer trying to paint me as a manipulative older sister who had exploited my younger siblings' grief for free housing. Their strategy was predictable but vicious. Isabella's attorney, a slick-looking man named Thompson, argued that I had emotionally coerced my vulnerable 19-year-old sister into letting me live rent-free in her house. He claimed that any money I spent on her education was freely given with no strings attached, essentially charitable gifts from a big sister. Miss Sinclair took advantage of a grieving teenager's emotional state, Thompson argued during pretrial motions. She positioned herself as the protector while actually securing 7 years of free housing worth over $100,000. But Rachel was ready for this approach. During discovery, we requested all of Isabella's financial records, text messages, and emails from medical school. What we found was devastating for her case. Not only did we have my documented payments, but we found evidence that Isabella had been telling other people about our arrangement. There were text messages to her medical school friends describing me as basically funding my entire education and sacrificing everything so I can become a doctor. There were emails to professors explaining that her sister was supporting me financially through school when she needed extensions or accommodations. She had even written about our agreement in a scholarship application essay, describing how my sister stepped up as my financial guardian after our parents died. The smoking gun came from Isabella's own phone records. Rachel found a text message thread between Isabella and her study group partner from 3rd year. When the friend asked how Isabella could afford medical school without student loans, Isabella had written, "My sister is basically bankrolling everything. We have this arrangement where she covers my expenses now and I'll help her start a business once I'm earning real money. She's working 2 jobs for me. It's actually kind of amazing." Rachel presented this evidence with surgical precision. Your Honor, the defendant's own communications clearly established this was a mutual agreement, not charitable giving. She explicitly told multiple people that her sister was supporting her education with the expectation of future reciprocation. The trial itself lasted 3 days. Isabella's testimony was scheduled for the 2nd day, and I'll never forget watching her take the stand. She looked confident, professional in her business suit, every inch the successful doctor she'd become. But under Rachel's cross-examination, that confidence crumbled quickly. "Dr. Sinclair," Rachel began, "you've testified that your sister's financial support was freely given with no expectation of repayment. Is that your testimony?" "Yes, that's correct." Rachel held up a printed text message. "This is a message you sent to your sister in March of your 3rd year. Would you read the highlighted portion for the court?" Isabella's face went pale as she read her own words. "I know these last few years have been so hard on you, and I see how exhausted you are. Once I'm making doctor money, we're going to fix everything. You're going to have the life you deserve. I promise we'll get through this together." "Does that sound like someone who considered the financial support to be free gifts?" Rachel asked. Isabella fumbled for an explanation. "That was just. I was trying to be encouraging. It wasn't meant as a legal obligation." "I see. And this text message from your 4th year, where you wrote, 'I can't wait to start paying you back for everything,' was that also just encouragement?" The courtroom was dead silent as Isabella struggled to answer. People say things when they're emotional. It doesn't mean, and when you wrote in your scholarship application that your sister was sacrificing her own dreams to fund mine, were you being emotional then too? Thompson objected, but the damage was done. Isabella's own words were destroying her credibility. The most devastating moment came when Rachel presented the financial analysis. A forensic accountant had calculated that if I had paid fair market rent for 7 years, it would have totaled approximately $84,000. But my documented payments for Isabella's education totaled $185,000, more than double what any reasonable rent would have been. So even if we accept the plaintiff's argument that Ms. Sinclair should have paid rent, Rachel explained to the judge, the financial support she provided her sister far exceeded any rental obligation. The defendant received a net benefit of over $100,000 from this arrangement. When it came time for closing arguments, Rachel was brilliant. She didn't just argue the law, she argued justice. Your Honor, this case is about a woman who gave 7 years of her life to fulfill a promise made to her dying parents. Isabella Sinclair wouldn't be Dr. Sinclair today without her sister's sacrifice. Now she wants to claim that sacrifice meant nothing while demanding additional money from the person who made her success possible. Isabella's lawyer tried to stick to his original argument, but it sounded hollow against the mountain of evidence we'd presented. The text messages, emails, witness testimony, and financial records painted a clear picture of a mutual agreement that Isabella was now trying to escape. Judge Morrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, took only 1 day to reach her decision. When we returned to court for the verdict, I could barely sit still. 8 months of legal battle had led to this moment. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, Judge Morrison began, "This court finds that while the property is indeed jointly owned, the plaintiff's claims regarding unjust enrichment are without merit. The evidence clearly establishes an oral agreement whereby Ms. Autumn Sinclair would support the defendant's medical education in exchange for future reciprocal assistance." I gripped Rachel's hand so hard I probably left bruises. Furthermore, this court finds that Dr. Isabella Sinclair was unjustly enriched by receiving $185,000 in educational support. The court orders that Dr. Sinclair repay $150,000 to Ms. Sinclair, minus $35,000 representing estimated fair market rent, for a net judgment of $115,000, payable in installments over 5 years. The gavel came down and I couldn't breathe. We had won. Not only had Isabella's ridiculous lawsuit been dismissed, but she now owed me $115,000 plus court costs and attorney fees. Isabella sat frozen at the defendant's table, staring at the judge in complete shock. Her expensive lawyer was already packing up his briefcase, probably calculating how much money he'd made from her doomed case. As we left the courtroom, Isabella tried to approach me one last time. "Autumn, please, can we talk about this? We're family." I held up my hand to stop her. "You made this a legal matter, Isabella. You took your own sister to court after she gave you everything. Now it is what it is. My lawyer will be in touch about the payment schedule." "But I'm your sister," she said, her voice cracking for the first time in months. I looked at her one final time. "You were my sister. Now you're just someone who owes me money." 3 years have passed since that victorious day in court, and my life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined. Isabella has made every single payment on time, $23,000 per year, like clockwork. I suspect her lawyer warned her about the serious consequences of defaulting on a court-ordered judgment, especially as a licensed physician who could face professional discipline. The first payment arrived exactly 30 days after the judgment, accompanied by a brief, formal letter from her attorney. No personal note, no attempt at reconciliation, just cold legal compliance. That's when I knew our relationship was truly over. The sister who used to call me crying about organic chemistry exams had become a stranger who communicated only through lawyers. I used that first year of payments to finally pursue the dream I'd postponed for so long, starting my own marketing consultancy. Sinclair Strategic Communications launched 18 months ago, and it's been growing steadily ever since. My first client was actually referred by Rachel, my attorney, and word of mouth has brought in several more small businesses who need targeted marketing help. There's something deeply satisfying about building something that's entirely mine after years of pouring everything into someone else's future. Every new client, every successful campaign, every dollar I earn feels like vindication. I'm finally living the life I was supposed to have 7 years ago, before I put everything on hold for Isabella. I still live in our parents' house, though I've been considering selling it once Isabella's payments are complete in 2 years. The memories here are complicated now, beautiful childhood moments mixed with the pain of betrayal. Sometimes I sit in the kitchen where we made that fateful agreement and wonder what our parents would think about how everything turned out. Would they be disappointed in Isabella for her betrayal? Would they be proud of me for fighting back? I like to think they'd understand that I did everything I could to honor their memory and keep our family together. Isabella was the one who chose to destroy that bond. The isolation has been the hardest part. Cutting Isabella out of my life completely meant losing the only family I had left. Holidays are quiet now. There's no one to call with good news or bad news. But I've learned that being alone is better than being with someone who sees you as disposable. Isabella has tried to reach out exactly 4 times in 3 years. The first attempt came about 6 months after the court ruling, a long email talking about healing our relationship and moving past this legal mess. I deleted it without responding. The second was a birthday card with a handwritten note saying she missed me. I threw it away. The third was last Christmas, when she sent a package with photos from our childhood and a letter begging for forgiveness. I returned it unopened. The most recent attempt was just 2 months ago. She somehow got my business number and called, claiming she wanted to congratulate me on the success of my consultancy. I heard through mutual friends that your business is doing really well, she said, her voice carefully neutral. I always knew you'd be successful at whatever you put your mind to. I hung up without saying a word. Here's what I've learned from this experience. Sometimes the people closest to you are capable of the most devastating betrayal. Sometimes family means nothing when money and self-interest are involved. And sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to completely remove toxic people from your life, even when it breaks your heart. But I've also learned that fighting back, really fighting back with everything you have, can lead to justice. That documentation and preparation matter more than emotions in legal battles. That standing up for yourself, even when it's terrifying and expensive and exhausting, is sometimes the only way to reclaim your dignity. Do I regret helping Isabella through medical school? That's complicated. I regret trusting her. I regret not getting our agreement in writing. I regret believing that family loyalty was unconditional. But I don't regret keeping my promise to our parents or enabling someone to become a doctor who can help people. What I do regret is that Isabella will spend the rest of her career helping strangers while having destroyed the one person who sacrificed everything to make that career possible. Her patients will never know that their dedicated physician is someone capable of such calculated cruelty toward her own family. 2 more years of payments, and this chapter of my life will finally be closed. Isabella will have repaid her debt, and I'll be completely free to move forward without any connection to her whatsoever. I'm already planning what I'll do with the final payment. Maybe a vacation, maybe a down payment on a new house, maybe just put it in savings as a foundation for whatever comes next. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't destroying someone's life. It's building a better life for yourself while they're forced to pay for what they took from you. Every month when that payment arrives, Isabella is reminded of exactly what her betrayal cost her, not just money, but the love and loyalty of the one person who would have done anything for her. She chose to see me as an enemy. Now she gets to pay me like one. And that's a feeling that never gets old. If this story resonated with you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible revenge stories. Have you ever had to fight for justice against someone you trusted? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from viewers around the world. Trust me, the stories we share on this channel prove that sometimes the good guys really do win in the end.